I'm here with Catherine Todaro, Dean of Creighton University's College of Nursing. The Bureau of Labor projects that nursing will be the highest growing profession over the next decade. How is the university preparing to meet this demand?
Creighton has done a number of things. One, we've increased our number of traditional nursing students, but we also offer accelerated education on 3 campuses in Omaha, Hastings campus in central Nebraska, and our brand new campus, which is in Phoenix, Arizona.
Learn more about all of the university's academic programs at creighton.edu.
Welcome to Creating a Family. Talk about foster care and adoption. Today we're going to be talking about unexpected stresses of newly adoptive families, a subject many of us have experienced, or at least the unexpected stress part of the subject many of us have experienced. Here's a sample of what you're going to hear.
One of the things that I advise families to do when a new little one is coming home to them, is to make a list of all the jobs that you wish magically would get done. And then when family members or friends say, what can we do to help? Don't pass the baby to them. Rather, use that time to lie down, gaze in each other's eyes, relax, and learn to know each other, and let your family and friends who are offering to help do something on the list.
This show is brought to you by Creating a Family. We are the National Adoption and Foster Care Education and Support nonprofit. I'm Dawn Davenport. I am the host and the director of Creating a Family. And you can find us and all of our resources online at creatingafamily.org. Hey, listen up, all adoption agencies. Our partner, Jockey Being Family, who is the underwriter of this show, is looking for adoption agencies that want to provide continued support to their families after adoption. The Jockey Being Family Backpack Program provides newly adopted kiddos with their own backpack, customized with their initials and filled with Jockey Being Family bear and a blanket, as well as parenting resources for their parents. So let your agency know about this wonderful, let me stress the word free, resource. They can sign up at the jockeybeingfamily.com website. This show, as well as all the resources at Creating a Family, is possible only through the generous support of the organizations who believe in our mission of providing unbiased, medically accurate information, and are accurate, not really medically, or sometimes medically and psychologically accurate to pre- and post-adoptive families. Some of these wonderful organizations include Vista Del Mar. They are a licensed nonprofit adoption agency with over 65 years of experience helping to create families. They offer home study-only services as well as full-service infant adoption, international, and foster-to-adopt programs. You can find them online at their website, vistadelmar.org. Today we're going to be talking about unexpected stresses of newly adoptive families. We'll be talking with Jennifer McCallum. She is the lead post-adoption counselor at Buckner Children and Family Services, and Dr. Lark Eshleman. She is a consultant and educator whose experience is working with children and families who have experienced early emotional trauma, which, let's face it, is many of the children that we work with. This is a topic of unexpected stresses that I think is important for all adoptive families. So often we only think about it in terms of when we adopt older children, but in fact, there are stresses for domestic infant adoption as well. And, some of these are just general new parent stresses. And we also have adoption-specific stresses, and that's more what we're going to be focusing on. And when we talk about the adoption-specific stresses, we're going to be talking about it in different contexts, depending on whether you adopt a baby, a toddler, or an older child. So let's start with domestic infant adoption, when you're adopting a baby. Lark, can you talk to us about just some of the typical stresses that adoptive families may feel when they've brought their brand new, beautiful, absolutely perfect baby home? What are some of the stresses that they don't expect that they may well feel?
Yes, I would love to speak to that topic because it comes up so often when I'm working with families that they express a kind of shock that they didn't expect that they would feel so inept. So many families say to me, gosh, we were so excited that we forgot that we might not know what we're doing or we might not think we know what we're doing. And so one of the big messages, a take-home message is, your baby's more scared than you are. And so you need to be confident and you need to share with your little one that everything's going to be fine. You'll get to know them. They will get to know you. And over time, things will be very comfortable. But it takes a little while and a lot of confidence.
And I think that every, particularly with your first child, I think every new parent feels that to some degree.
Yes.
I getting ready to leave the hospital with our first, my husband and I looked at each other and said, they should not be sending us home with this child. This is a mistake. I think
we've all felt that way, Dawn. Yep.
Yeah. So I think that to a certain extent that is normal. But we hear parents say that they feel that they're almost like they're babysitting somebody else's child, and they worry that that's a sign that there's something fundamentally wrong. Is that feeling, Jennifer, of being a babysitter, is that an uncommon thing for parents to report?
Not at all. And adoptive parents need that extra time to bond with an adopted child. And just like what we were talking about, I think it's important to recognize that those thoughts are common and normal, and sometimes they feel intrusive, and we're thinking, maybe I wasn't cut out for parenting, or should we have adopted after all? And it's important, I should say, to recognize just how hard parenting is and how common and normal some of those thoughts and feelings are.
Jennifer, how long should people, if not everyone, let's be honest, not everybody has this feeling, but if you are experiencing that feeling of, I don't even feel like a parent here, I feel like this is somebody else's child, how long should you give that feeling before you should worry? Because you've just said it's a fairly common thing, and in the vast majority of cases it passes. So how long should people wait? How long to experience before you worry?
Right. I think it's always important to ask for support and help. To be successful, as soon as you need that help, I think I would ask. I don't know that I would wait. I think there's just there's a lot of challenges in parenting, and you don't have to go through that alone. I think it's important to connect with just other adoptive parents who are experiencing similar feelings and challenges, and just really build up that support network, and definitely ask for help, even if it feels like, well, it's only been a week and I'm still having these feelings. Yeah, it's okay to reach out and ask for help, and it's important.
And I think it also depends a bit on the depth of the feeling, just a feeling that this all feels alien and you don't feel I think we have this idea of almost a mystical experience of motherhood, that the minute a baby is placed in our arms, we are going to swoon with delight and feel this unbelievable feeling of pure love. And while that does happen, it very often doesn't, regardless of whether the children enter our family through birth or adoption. And sitting with that and just giving yourself permission to feel what you feel, and know that some people fall in love and some people grow in love, and that's just maybe how we're hardwired. I'm not sure. Any thoughts on that, Lark, as far as acceptance and giving ourselves grace to not feel this overwhelming feeling of this child, of love towards this child?
I think the way you express that, Dawn, about some of us fall in love and some of us grow in love is is perfect. It's so true. And we have to, in order to grow in love, we have to nurture ourselves and our experience and also give ourselves time, which I know, Jennifer, you mentioned before. It does take time. But, not just time, but also time, relaxed time and comfortable time. And so one of the things that I advise families to do when a new little one is coming home to them is to make a list of all the jobs that you wish magically would get done. And then when family members or friends say, what can we do to help? Don't pass the baby to them. Rather, use that time to lie down, gaze in each other's eyes, relax and learn to know each other, and let your family and friends who are offering to help do something on the list that you've put up on the refrigerator. They can do the laundry or maybe go shopping for you or something. So you have time, just relaxed, beautiful, interactive bonding time with your new little one. It takes that kind of time in order for the feelings to grow and to become defined.
A great idea to pass the list around versus a child. And what compounds all this is the typical lack of sleep with a newborn, and that is, and we know the importance of sleep just for general health, but the importance of sleep for emotional health is also huge. So, any thoughts, Lark, on how there is no magic cure for getting sleep with a newborn, but one of the advantages with adoption is that the mom is not alone in the feeding unless she's trying to induce lactation. But if she's not doing that, that does give us some opportunity to share the midnight feeding. So anyway, Lark, thoughts on what new parents can do to try to maximize sleep?
I'm going to go back to this theme again of allowing other people to do the things in life for you so you can do the baby interaction things. And for me, that would mean, and I did this with my own kids too, is when they nap, try and lie down with them. It's a beautiful bonding experience to sleep with your kids, even in a nap, just a short time to lie down when they do, and to be close to them. Maybe not in the same bed, depending on how you feel about co-sleeping, but at least close to them so that you rest and they rest. Highly recommend it.
And what your pediatrician recommends as to co-sleeping as
well.
Yes, make
absolutely.
sure you talk with them. And let me add to that something that I would strongly suggest is switching off the middle of the night feedings. Yes, if you are staying at home and your partner is not, sometimes you feel like I've got to be the one that gets up. But every other night, allowing your partner to handle the middle of the night, and you figure out where to sleep that you can get, or how to do the sleeping arrangements so you are not awakened when your partner gets up to tend to the baby, so that you can get, and every other night, if you're getting a decent night's sleep, you will be amazed at what it does for your emotional outlook, as well as just general crabbiness. So, so sleep.
Which would not be true for any of us, of course, but
right, exactly. Ourselves excluded. Probably not. One thing that I wanted to raise, and it's an interesting point now because I'm seeing it come up very often. Creating a Family has a really large online support group, and this topic or some variation on this topic comes up not infrequently, and that's the idea of cocooning. And in a way, I feel a little bit of guilt, to be honest, because I think we were certainly a early promoter of we being Creating a Family was an early promoter of the idea of cocooning. But I feel like it's gotten out of hand. We have people who would not even have grandparents touch the child, won't even have grandparents come over. This is for a newborn. We're not talking an older child. We'll talk about cocooning and its impacts with older children later in this interview. But, Jennifer, thoughts on that? Am I alone to think that we've taken this, some people have taken it so far that it's okay to share, not all, you should still be the primary caretaker of your child, as Lark was saying, but that it's okay to allow others to help out. If you want a nap and Grandma wants to snuggle with the baby, there's not permanent harm. Or that's my thoughts. What are yours, Jennifer?
No, I completely agree. I think not only just because that self-care component is so incredibly important, and you want to be able to kind of simplify your life and your schedule, especially in those early weeks and moments. But I think it's important for that attachment with other family as well. I definitely think it's wonderful to let Grandma or Grandpa just read a book with that precious baby, or rock and hold them and snuggle, and I don't think that's damaging or taking anything away from the attachment with Mom and Dad.
Yeah, I what I say is, yes, you want to draw your circle and kind of simplify and draw your circle, but don't exclude the people who in your family that you want to have a tight relationship with that child. And if your parents drive you nuts, well then, use this as an excuse. It's okay.
That may be a different, yeah, and I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to sort of, maybe limit outsiders in the short term, and I think that's a great opportunity then, especially for people who maybe don't understand the complexity of adoption. It's a great opportunity to sort of set some limits, but I definitely think it's great to share that baby with the people who love them. Yeah.
And if it's okay for me to jump in here too,
yeah,
I want
please.
to add
Absolutely, Lark.
Some of Bruce Perry's work, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and his concept of sensory bath. Something that's important to remember is that this little baby had been bathed in the hormones and the breath of another woman's body for a long time. And so the transfer may be, and is not always, but may be traumatic for the infant or young child. So one of the things that's important during this period when you're getting to know each other and you're drawing your circle around who are going to be your most intimate family members with this child or this infant, is that you want to surround this baby with your sensory bath. You want to keep things calm and quiet, and then just bathe this baby in the most gentle calming of yourself. And that's one of the reasons that we talk about limiting the number, not excluding other people, but limiting and keeping things calm and supportive for the infant to learn a new environment, total environment, the sound of your voice, your breath on his or her face. Those are very intimate moments that help a baby bond and then eventually attach. And so you want to maximize those while minimizing too much intrusion of other sensory input or too many people that the baby doesn't know. In other words, every baby and every infant and every situation is different, but in response to what your baby needs, keep things as calm and interactive with you as a parent as you can.
Lark, can you give us some practical examples of how to create the sensory bath for I love the term sensory bath.
I know.
It is a beautiful term. Just some practical things that parents have done.
Yeah. Yes, and some of these are going to sound really goofy to some of you who are listening. I understand that. I really, truly get that. But as you learn and your baby learns you, as you learn each other, something that's very simple to do, and it really is actually a time saver, so I love this, is taking a shower together in the morning instead of you getting a shower quickly, early, so that you'll be on time to wake the baby and get them dressed for childcare or whatever. Take your bath together, your shower together, and that's a good example. Another would be as you're feeding the baby, not with a bottle, this would be when they're in, when they have a spoon, is to alternate feeding. I know that sounds kind of gross, but, spoon feed the baby and then feed yourself with the same spoon. It's what that's going to do is transfer the smell, the taste of each other to each other. Doesn't that sound kind of weird? But it's shown itself to be a very positive way to induce a bond, a natural bond. One other quick one I'll tell you is that, especially if babies have difficulty sleeping, they're in a new environment, put your T-shirt from the day before you wash it, so it still smells like you, put it over the baby's pillow so that during the night the baby gets to smell you while he or she is sleeping. And it can be very comforting, especially for babies who have difficulty getting in a sleep routine. It can really be a helpful thing. So those are a couple examples. I wrote a few more in my book, which now has been out for quite a while, but most of these things are still very much the same.
Yeah, and doctors for newborns will most likely recommend not having pillows, but you can take the T-shirt and rub it over the crib cover, the mattress.
Absolutely. Right.
And transfer. Right. And the last one I would throw in on that would be baby wearing. Putting a baby in a front pack where they are held close to you and just do your daily activities.
Thank you, Dawn. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so
that's a biggie.
And actually, and it's also makes life easier for you as well. So so take them out of the plastic little and put them in a front pack and do your business that way throughout the day.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that another thing that is helpful, you had, Lark, you had mentioned make a list of all the jobs, and that is a great idea. But also, before the baby comes, make a list of things that recharge you, things that are important to you for your emotional health or make you just feel like you. And then work with if you have a partner, and if you don't have a partner, whoever is work with yourself and whoever is helping you to figure out ways to get some of those activities or things back into your life. And that's a good place for if you are fortunate to have grandparents. Let's say, for instance, that taking a run is really just important to you, or that may sound too noble. What about getting to the coffee shop and just having an hour to read a book? That's probably more realistic. So whether you're noble or not, utilize your help for times that to allow you time to do the things that recharge you. And chances are good that doing the laundry is not something that will ever recharge you. So pass that on and make certain that a few of the events, it may not happen as often as it happened before. Probably it won't. That's part of adjusting to life with a new child. But do your best to create a chance for you to continue some of those events. And you may have to be flexible, let's be honest.
Right, and Jennifer, if you don't mind me, I know you probably have really good thoughts about this too, but if you don't mind me jumping in, we have 2 new moms in our neighborhood. And the moms both asked together during a baby shower for a twins stroller. And what happens is one mom pushes both the kids in a twins stroller while the other one runs, and then the next day they switch off. And I think,
smart.
Well, I know, what a great idea. The babies don't mind who's pushing them, and the moms get to have alone time for their runs. It's just an example of, I think, a beautiful way of, joining forces.
Yeah, working together.
Working together, but also identifying that, you know what, this is important to me, and it's going to help me feel like me sooner. Jennifer, we know that the majority of people come to domestic infant adoption after having struggled through infertility. And I think that we often downplay the impact of that struggle on this transition into parenthood. Let's talk a little about that. How can infertility impact this adjustment to new parenthood?
Well, in many ways, and I think definitely for successful attachment, it's really important for adoptive families to kind of grieve some of those unresolved losses. Like you said, often it's infertility or children that they've lost through miscarriage. but I think for there to be just a wholehearted parenting, those losses really have to be grieved. But not only those losses, I think just unresolved issues that maybe you have about your own childhood. I really think it's important to explore those before you begin parenting yourself.
Mm-hmm. Ideally, before the child comes.
Yes.
Well, that doesn't always.
Yeah, your own childhood experiences really affect how you're going to parent. Sorry, go ahead, Lark.
No, absolutely. You are so correct on that, and your struggles through infertility also impact your feeling of worthiness. Your feeling of yourself as a female is often impacted, and also the loss of that genetic connection. We don't want to admit that could be something that is a loss, but for some people it absolutely is. And acknowledging that is important. I'm sorry, Lark, I started to turn to you and then turned away. So, yes, talk to us some about what you have seen about
something that I would
add. Childhood.
Yeah, right. So here's something to add to that, Dawn, and I know this is a very sad topic, and there are numbers of your listeners who will identify with this immediately, but numbers of families come to adoption after multiple miscarriages. And I'm not sure that we as a culture are very good at grieving and understanding the long-term effect of losing an infant during that critical time before they're born. So I think it's important for those of us who work with families to help them understand that it's terribly sad. It is worthy of incredible grief to acknowledge and to go through the process of allowing yourself the sadness and the loss of losing infants before they're born. It's another thing that we just kind of gloss over, and we let parents, we think, well, now you have a baby, so you're okay. Well, yes, now I have a baby, and I'm very happy, but I also am very sad this baby is not a replacement for the baby or babies that I've lost. And once families have the support to go through the grieving process, I think we're much better at accepting a new infant into our lives, our hearts, and our families.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Adoption is not a cure for infertility. It is a cure for parentlessness. I mean, it does. You can now parent, but there are so many losses. And what I would like for anyone listening to this today to know is that if you are struggling, this does not mean that you will be a bad parent. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have adopted. It doesn't mean that you are not going to be a great adoptive parent. What it does mean is that you need to see someone to help you resolve, and not that you ever completely resolve some of the losses, but come to terms with the losses associated with your inability to conceive or carry a child to term, whether it be through primary infertility or whether through miscarriage or stillbirth. So there are definitely counselors who can help you, and there's no shame here in this, nor is it a sense of that you have failed. This is there are so many losses, and it's so sad, and as Lark said, we simply don't acknowledge it well in our society.
Well put, Dawn, and thank you for that.
Jennifer, something that we're seeing more, perhaps now, but it's always been there, is some of the stresses that come with parenting a baby with neonatal abstinence syndrome or even if not full-blown NAS, just prenatal exposure. Can you talk some about that and how that stress can interfere with parents feeling totally in control the first couple of months home with their new baby?
Yeah, it that raises a lot of challenges and wanting to feel like you're adapting as that parent, and that new baby is adapting into your home too. I continue to kind of go back to just connecting, with others who are experiencing the same challenges. I think there can be just a lot of healing in knowing that you're not the only one that's going through this and experiencing that.
If you're fortunate, you will have an in-person support group, although those are fairly rare.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but I would say absolutely consider. I have seen the true beauty of online support, and in some ways it's preferable because it can be whenever you have time, and it's 24/7 because we will see people posting when they're up in the middle of the night with their baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't recommend that, but they are posting then, and somebody else will come back and say, yeah, I'm not sleeping either, and yes, I've felt that, and it's, or have you tried this? So don't, online support, there's a number of them out there, including the Creating a Family online support group, which is a closed Facebook group. Lark, thoughts on the anything additional with, before I turn to you, let me also say that Creating a Family has a course specifically on this. It's surviving the first 6 months with an opiate-exposed baby. Much of the information would apply to all forms of neonatal abstinence syndrome, regardless if it's opiates. But I highly recommend that course. Any thoughts, Lark, on what to do with a baby who has had prenatal exposures?
Well, yes, in terms of working in neonatal units in hospitals, I would say that we tend to forget that as the infant gets a little bit older, that they still need lots of rocking and lots of holding, and that seems to be one of the biggest positive impacts that we can make on children's neurologic system when they have had this exposure. So I've had parents say to me, my arms are going to fall off because I just can't hold and rock them anymore, and I surely get that. Definitely understand it. But there's an example of when grandparents or one family converted their garage into a rocking room, and certain designated, vetted neighbors, loved neighbors, would come in and help rock when mom or dad were just too tired to do it. So I can, first of all, I do want to say also, Dawn, that I think your group and your site and your courses are excellent and exemplary, and here's one of the examples of something that parents don't know what to expect. Even with some courses, they need just what you're talking about, online support, other people who have been there, people who will give them examples of things that have worked for them, what to try. So my advice is find resources like yours, use them, and don't get discouraged because every infant and their exposure is unique. And so the combination of what they need is going to be unique also.
That's such a good point.
Try. Go back to the basics. This baby had insult and trauma in utero. Now we need to help them on the outside by going back to what would have been healing or nurturing to that infant in utero and help them repair the damage.
Exactly. And the last stress I want to bring up with domestic infant adoption is one that I think a lot of people don't think about, and that is the stresses with open adoption. And Jennifer, I'm going to ask you to talk about that. What are some of the unexpected things? I mean, we talk to families about open adoption ahead of time, but sometimes, what we think is going to happen and the reality of how it's happening and how we feel about how it's happening are often not the same. So talk to us a bit about how open adoption can kind of play with our minds in those beginning months.
Yeah, for sure. I think establishing, that relationship with the birth parent in an open adoption can be complex. And often, it is such an exciting time. Other family, other friends, everybody wants to know about the child and all about their story. And I think something that is really important and valuable is remembering that parents are kind of, for now, while that child is young, are really the holders of the information for that child. And I think not sharing too much about the child's story and sensitive information really until they're old enough to know how, to talk about adoption themselves is really, really important to remember. But also just, like I said, establishing that relationship with the birth parent and sharing their story in a respectful way, too, is also going to be really, really important.
Yeah, I concur wholeheartedly. I also think that sometimes we underestimate the feeling of that after the baby is with us, we feel threatened sometimes by the presence of the birth mom, or thinking that the birth mom should be moving on. Why is she still wanting information? I said I was going to, but honestly, I thought we would be doing this, once a month, and all of a sudden now, it's like she's wanting information all the time, and that's confusing, and you feel bad about yourself for thinking it. You're fearful that am I ever going to feel like the mom? Does she still feel like the mom? Lark, talk to us a little about some of this confusion that moms might feel.
Well, first let me say that, yes, moms definitely may go through this. Parents may definitely go through this. But one thing to keep remembering is that the baby's also going through this. So there's been an immediate separation from birth parent, and then there's a reintroduction, and then there's abandonment again, and then there's reintroduction. And so the baby is going to be experiencing some of this. If we keep our eye on being attuned to what our little one needs, that helps us to be strong in our resolve to either continue with the visits or talk about maybe for the baby's sake to taper them off for a while. But I don't want to go down that road too much. It's in terms of stresses on the mom, sure, that insecurity of, gosh, why does the baby look so comfortable in birth mom's arms and yet cries for me a lot? Don't second guess yourself. You're mom. You are mom, and you need to be the rock for that baby. So you're doing all the right stuff. Keep reminding yourself, ask for support and the nurture that you need from others to remind yourself that you are this baby's mother and you are going to do what is best for this baby, and you're doing it. So stresses come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, and if it's from birth mom or birth family, it's kind of hard to draw that line and to keep reminding yourself, I'm mom or dad, I'm this parent.
And extend grace to the birth family as well, because this is all new to them as well. And this is all a period of adjustment for all of you. And this is not something that many people have much, and Lark was well pointed out, for the baby as well. But this is not something that there's a blueprint for exactly how to follow. So extend grace to everyone, including yourself, but also some flexibility that you need to. Yes, the birth mom is struggling. How can I meet her needs for information if this is the situation, at the same time that I'm meeting my needs and the baby's needs? And there's usually a way through that, and I would suggest that there are again, we have a lot of courses on this, and I will, so you can check those out. But also, this is another great example of joining a support group and share. And you're not going to be the first person who is feeling threatened or is feeling angry or is even feeling intense sadness for this person and what they're going through, and that certainly was an unexpected feeling. So you're not the first who's experienced it, so reach out for support.
You know what, Dawn, maybe I could just jump in with one other thought here. That I've worked with some families that were not anticipating the intensity of requests, which you referred to, by birth family for information. And one way that they addressed it was by setting up an online site for just the two families to be able to go in and see, so that the new family forever family could post every day, this is what's happening, here's a picture, here's what's going on.
Share pictures.
They wanted to keep those pictures for themselves and a record of how baby was doing. And this way they were then able to open it up to birth family without there being a constant request for daily visits or phone calls, or what might feel like intrusion on a regular basis. So everybody felt a little better in this particular case when they got that joint site up and started using it.
A great example of flexibility. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Well, and I was just going to say we know this, and research shows that it is always best for the child when there, is an integration of the biological family, and I think that's a wonderful example of how to be able to honor the birth family, but still kind of create some boundaries for your own family, which is important.
Yeah, both are important. And the only before we move on to talking about older child, the only thing I would additionally add to that is that you do have an obligation to honor, though, the agreements that you've made before on the degree of openness. So if you have committed to something, then you need to honor that, unless you find it's truly, and generally you are not agreeing to something that's really going to be truly too onerous. So check your insecurity and make sure that's not what's at play here. But being creative on other ways to meet everybody's needs is just plain smart, and the online idea is an excellent one. All right, I want to move us to talking about some of the unexpected stresses when you adopt a toddler or an older child through either foster care or international adoption. Now, some of these same stresses that we talked about with infants are certainly going to apply. Lack of sleep, the idea of feeling like a babysitter is a big one, particularly with older children, sometimes even more toddlers. So there's definitely overlap, but there are some unique stresses, I think, that happen with families who are adopting through foster care internationally, either a toddler or a school-age child or even a tween or a teen. Jennifer, what are some of the typical stresses that you see these type of families experience when they first come home?
Yeah, I think sometimes there can often be trouble in school, which can show up in different ways, whether that's just some classroom behavior problems. They may be behind. And so some of those kind of crop up. Sometimes there can be new health issues that start that you didn't know about, or other background issues, which then can kind of maybe trigger some fear on the part of the parents, and to be able to be sure that they're accessing the care that their child is going to need. I'm
going to go. Let me stop you a second, and I want to come back to the school issues, because that is such an important one, and it's one that it actually strikes fear in a lot of adoptive parents, because they can extrapolate and start, I call it spinning, where you're spinning a little out of control. Oh my God, this child is, in 6th grade and is reading on a 2nd grade level. This kid's never going to graduate high school. This kid is never going to get a job. This kid is never going to be living in my basement forever. This type of spinning. Talking about a friend, not that I ever personally did this, but I am well acquainted with spinning. And I think that school issues, we often underestimate how much they can scare us, and also what power school can have. Thoughts on? I mean, I have my own opinion about how much to allow school issues to interfere with your house and your attachment and your bonding and your parenting. But Lark, let's talk for just a moment about your thoughts on that. A child who is behind, and when your child is behind, that means there's going to be usually lots of homework, lots of meetings, lots of other expectations on the parents. Yeah.
So it didn't come up in the bio, but I actually have been a school principal for 10 years and then a school psychologist in Pennsylvania. And so one of the things that I'm very proud of the fact that this all happened in my life before I went into the field of psychology. probably I went into the field because I was so curious about some things that I saw happening with kids in school
I bet.
and families.
Yes.
Yeah. So something that I used to say to parents, and I'm really proud of myself that I didn't understand it all, but I felt intuitively it was important. If there were children who had tough beginnings, early life stressors, two things that I would want to make a point about. One is that they are probably going to be behind in some developmental area of their life, because we know that trauma does that. It slows down otherwise normal development in some of the domains of your life. One of them may be academics. I used to encourage parents, if your child needs help on the outside, it trumps whatever you're going to be needing to do in school right now. Get that taken care of. Don't worry about missing school for therapy appointments or for an extra weekend or time with grandma and grandpa if that's important to your child. Whatever you need to do, that's going to be very important. Obviously not 100%, but you need to take each case individually, but it's really important for kids to get their emotional stuff straightened out. What we found was when that was the case, children caught up very quickly in academics. So really highly stress that. The other thing to remember is that we have to manage our expectations as parents and as schools, that every child isn't going to be where parents may want them to be or where schools expect them to be. We love them anyway, we accept them anyway, and we say we're going to work with you where you are and help you to progress. If your child is making progress, that's what's important, not the level of progress. But we like to say in the school psych world, you want to make a year of progress in a year of school. That doesn't always happen. It isn't always the case. So we need to be gentle with our youngsters. They're just little babies still. Even through high school, they're still young. And so we need to be gentle and supportive rather than punitive, and we need to attend to their emotional needs, and the rest will come along.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to recommend another course. We have a course with Heather Forbes, and 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 she's also got some great books. And one of the things that she says is that talking about, I think specifically, and I'm paraphrasing her, and let me say that my paraphrase is not as good as her saying it, but when talking about there's homework, and our children are usually struggling, and she has a real firm opinion that homework is not going to trump, it's not going to control our after school. I want to work with attachment with this child. This child needs some time off. This child needs fun. We need time as a family, and all of that is going to take precedent. So what this means, however, is that you're going to have to stand up oftentimes to your school and say, and that's hard, and that's stressful. We're talking about stress. That's stressful. Yeah. But it is something worth considering, and I can't recommend enough if this is an issue that you're facing. Listen to those courses, because they will give you backbone to stand up and say, yes, school is important, but right now that's not my top priority. And that's hard. We've also talked about, or we haven't talked about what we should talk about. We hear about the honeymoon period. Jennifer, not every family experiences this, but it is often for those who do experience it. It's often a rude awakening when all of a sudden they start seeing challenging behaviors, and that throws another stress, a huge stress, into families, not just parents, but also the family dynamics and the whole family. So let's talk a little about some of that, the stresses associated from the parents and when their kids start acting out, and what they can do about it.
No, you're absolutely right. There, in some cases, there is and it is a new relationship. There's that exciting, honeymoon period, and then all of a sudden, it just kind of feels like it's falling apart. And what do we do now? And my child's, screaming in my face that they hate me, and where do we go? And I think the key is if we can go back to and really just investigating what's that message this child is trying to tell me in their anger, because often there's fear. There can be a lot of other things kind of bubbling up and coming to the surface that look like anger on the outside, and really just figuring out what can I do to meet the needs of my child right now, and connect with them, and being able to kind of bring that response down a little bit.
We say simplify your life, set up predictability. You need to set up routines, predictability, simplify your life, and then reach out for help. I promise you are not the only one, and people are not going to judge you because of your child's behavior. And there is help available. Go back to the agency you utilized, and I hope to goodness they have somebody that can help you, and they're not going to judge you. And if they don't have somebody, reach out to support groups, get your child and you into therapy. Any other suggestions, Lark, for families who are struggling? They're struggling with behavioral issues, and they're struggling with their own fear. And quite frankly, sometimes their own feelings of regret for having even done this. Have I ruined my family? Have I ruined my life? All of that. So thoughts on what we could tell parents at that moment?
Yeah, a couple. One is piggybacking on what you just said, Jennifer, is that so often anger comes from fear. And so a child doesn't, and even a teenager, I mean, they're still young. They don't understand their own feelings. Heaven knows most adults don't understand our own feelings at the time until we really think about it. So they're going to come out with something like, you're not my mom, or I hate you, or, whatever the verbalization is, to not take it personally.
Yeah. I don't have to do this. You're not my mom.
Right. Yep. So to remember that most of that comes from fear helps us, I think, to look behind the behavior, which is what you were saying, Jennifer, and I agree with you tremendously that we need to not take it personally. It's very hard to do that. And I also agree with what you're saying, Dawn, about routines. That I think routines are incredibly important for children and teens. And one of the things that I recommend to families is if you have a routine, for example, in the morning, and your child is giving you a hard time about getting through the routine, try as hard as you can to at least touch each of the pieces in the routine, even if you have to make them shorter. Don't skip
them. Give us an example.
If you can.
Give us an example of that, the morning routine.
So if in the morning, one of the things that parents often say, my child has real difficulty getting up and getting moving in the morning. Okay, if you can, set a routine that you're going to lie down with them and read actually to them for 5 minutes in the morning, or sit on the chair next to the bed and read for 5 minutes in the morning. It helps a lot of kids to wake up. Then you're going to get dressed, and you may use a challenge in that. Who's going to get dressed faster, or who gets to put on something green today, or whatever the challenge is. And then you eat breakfast, and then you pick up your bag and get ready for the bus. Now, you may feel like, we don't have time to read this morning because I overslept by a few minutes. Rather than skipping the reading piece, read for 2 minutes, get dressed as quickly as you can, shorten the period to have breakfast by 3 minutes, and now you're back on target and you haven't missed any of those pieces of the routine. It seems to be that children who have early trauma or difficulty in the beginning, or come from rough places, whatever terms we're comfortable using these days, they need routine tremendously, much more than most of us.
Yes.
So
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say that routine and consistency is really what's going to provide just a sense of security and safety. That child knows what to expect. And I
would say that not only do children need the routine, new children into the family need the routine, but we parents are also stressed and coping with a lot. That's been our lives have also been turned topsy-turvy, and any other children in our families' lives have been turned upside down. So routine it's easy to say we're doing it for our kids, but let's be perfectly honest. we all benefit from that. Jennifer, you had talked about something earlier about how the way we were parented and the way we have attached, how our parents attach to us and we to our parents, is influencing us as we parent. And I think that it's probably helpful at this stage when we're facing challenging behavior by our children to take note of how we are reacting and how our history is influencing the way we are reacting. It's easy to say don't take it personally, but what you really want to do when your kids scream at you is scream right back, or pinch their little head off, or walk out of the room and withdraw, or spank, or whatever. I think talk to us some about how our past and how we were parented and our past attachment styles influence how we're responding right now.
Yes, I mean, definitely. I think all of our own childhood experiences and attachment styles really, really affect how we parent, and often we don't realize it. We don't know that.
We don't know.
Yeah. No, not at all. And an unresolved issue from our childhood will just kind of crop up at the most unexpected time. Probably, when your child is yelling at you and not happy about something, and
when you're most stressed is when you are at your most stressed is when these, exactly.
Yeah, and I think often if you were, raised in a home where you were, weren't allowed to express your feelings, or you were told, oh, it's no big deal, just get over it, and I think then we tend to bring that in sometimes to how we parent, unless we really make a concerted effort to say, I want to, do things differently, and really explore just kind of what some of those issues in our own childhoods were, and how we want things to look different with our children. It can be hard. But it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile to kind of learn and explore those things about yourself, so that you can parent differently.
There are so many resources available. This is a opportunity. The stress you are feeling at this point is an opportunity for growth, and it also means learning, and sometimes learning is painful. But there are so many wonderful books on attachment. There are wonderful books on dealing with children with oppositional behavior. There's just lots and lots of resources online that are out there. So going back to your support group, post and ask for resources that have helped other people, and you will be inundated with wonderful resources. And make a point of saying, I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to kind of keep a parenting book going, and I'm going to allocate some time to read and to think on this. It's important. So spend the time and do that. One of the last things I think we will have time to talk about, but it's such an important one, is sibling issues and the stress of integrating children into a family. I think it takes a lot of parents by surprise. And what we hear from people is that, well, we talked about the adoption with the children that are already in the home, and they were, they wanted it. They were enthusiastic. This was, it was a family decision, and now we've gone forward, and they're fighting, and the children who were existing in the home are either being picked on or are complaining constantly. And interestingly enough, one of the biggest predictors of an adoption falling apart is sibling issues and parents feeling the need to take the side of and or protect children already in the home. So let's talk some about the unexpected stresses that siblings, both the new siblings, the new children coming in, as well as the children who are already in the home, what they're experiencing. Lark?
I think it's a huge shock to so many of us. I want to emphasize that this whole idea of sibling rivalry, sibling fear, sibling anger, whatever children are feeling when a new one comes in the home and just usurps everybody's attention. It's shocking in every family, birth family, adoptive family, foster family, no bones about it. So everyone should feel like, yep, it's going to be there in some way or other. Sometimes the children I worry about most are the ones who appear to be just fine with everything and try to become the primary caregiver themselves for the new child coming in. Not a good idea. But, boy, as a new mom, it might be just, you may think, wow, this is great. My 4-year-old or my 8-year-old or my 12-year-old is going to be surrogate mom. Not a good plan. So it's something to really watch out for, and it takes a lot of energy to ferret that out. What am I going to do? What shall I do instead? I do want to, because I know our time will soon be up, and in this regard, I would like to suggest that one thing families should do is to make note of the things that are of the most discomfort or fear to them when they start parenting, and then watch and mark their progress, because something that happens as things get better is we still see things that are a problem, and we forget that they were a lot worse before, and now we're making progress. So a good thing to do is and that can be true with siblings too, to say, used to be a lot of jealousy, now they fight once in a while, but gosh, it's still a lot better.
Yeah, it used to be every minute, now we're down to just once an hour. Yeah,
right.
And that's improvement.
Yes, improvement. Jennifer, thoughts on integrating children into a family and reducing the stress on the children already in the family?
Yeah, no, and I just to agree with what Lark said as well. I think when you see a child that wants to take on that caretaker role, that can be a concern. And I think too, there's always going to be the child that is wanting and needing more attention, and for a parent it feels like, what else can I do? I've done everything that they're asking of me, and they're still wanting this attention, and why, and I know I keep going back to it, but it's kind of going back to really investigating what's behind that. Why are they feeling insecure? But I definitely think this is a great time too when family counseling is going to be really helpful, so that the kiddos don't fall into those identity and roles of what their role is in the family, I guess I should say.
Yeah, and there are perhaps because this is such an important issue, we have a lot. Creating a Family has a lot of resources. You can find them on the creatingafamily.org. Go to click on Adoption Resources, and then click on A to Z Resource Guide. And then there's a whole section on it's combining children by birth and adoption, but it's equally applicable to combining children who are already in the home. And there are some tips. There are some tried and true things you can do. And one of the key ones is to try to find time every week to have some alone time with each child, whether it be when you're cooking or whether when you're washing dishes or going to the library, and finding and working together with your partner if you're married, and if you're not, with whomever is helping you, trying to create some structure in your life that will allow you to have some time, and allow the children who are both the kids who are new to the family as well as the kids who are already in the family, to express their true feelings. Don't make them hide how they're really feeling, because they also are reeling with the addition of children into the family. So I think it is so important. Yeah,
it's important to let them have an opportunity to talk about some of their worries, and what are your worries, and just get it out there and openly talk about it. Yeah, that open dialogue.
Or to play them out, or to draw them out, or because some kids are not able yet to voice them, but they feel them. You're absolutely right.
And to It is a big stressor, and to specifically raise the issue, especially with school-age children, sometimes they are embarrassed by the behavior of the new children and are in school or whatever, and they're embarrassed, but they feel disloyal, and so many families don't allow them to express their embarrassment because they feel that they should understand. They should understand that this child, came from a hard place or was abused and neglected, and so of course they don't know how to behave. But it's okay for the child who is the sibling to still be embarrassed, and it's okay to admit that. So to specifically allow some of the negatives that are real to come forward.
And don't you agree that sometimes mom or dad is embarrassed and doesn't like the fact that they're embarrassed, knows that they quote unquote shouldn't be embarrassed, but they sometimes jump all over the sibling who expresses the embarrassment. So it is really important to allow it to just happen. Just come out, talk about it. Let's discuss this. Let's support each other.
And let's think of some creative ways. There may be or may not be a way around it, but what are some creative ways? Is it when on the school bus that this behavior is bothering you the most? Well, perhaps if we can figure out a way to get someone to drive you guys to school, to try to come up with some problem solving, you're modeling good behavior for all kids. And I guess the last thing to point out is that especially when a child is just coming into the family, it is really important for parents to be vigilant and make certain there's a good adult supervision, because we need to protect both children, both sets of kids already in the family as well as the kids coming in. We need to set up supervisions until you understand how children are going to behave. It's important to have tight supervision. A good time to use your helpers, and we were talking about drawing our circle, but including people. Well, that's a good time to include helpers in helping you oversee kiddos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Jennifer McCallum and Dr. Lark Eshleman, for talking with us today about the unexpected stresses of newly adoptive families. Let me take a moment.
Thanks for letting us do that, Dawn. Creating a family is just fabulous, a fabulous resource. So happy to be part of this.
Let me stop for a moment and remind everybody that this show is brought to you by the generous support of our partners who believe in our mission. Some of our wonderful partners include Children's Connection. They're an adoption agency providing services for domestic infant adoption and embryo donation and adoption throughout the U.S. And Adoptions from the Heart. They have helped build over 6,000 families since 1985 through domestic infant adoption, and they work with people all across the United States. Thank you so much for joining us today. To get more information about our guest, Jennifer McCallum, you can go to the website for Buckner, and it is buckner.org. To get more information about Dr. Lark Eshleman, you can go to her website, which is aboutchildtrauma.org. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I will see you next week.
I'm here with the Reverend Daniel Hendrickson, president of Creighton University, which was ranked the #1 Midwest Regional University by U.S. News & World Report for the 15th straight year. Tell us why.
Well, Creighton offers an academically rigorous education in arts and sciences, in business, in health professions, and law, and we are so dedicated to the spiritual, personal, and professional growth of each member of the Creighton community. Creighton also continues to be a leader among U.S. Catholic and private institutions for the number of Goldwater scholars.
Learn more about all of the university's academic programs at creighton.edu.